Hello, we are on video 2 for the first chapter. Notice that I have this whole chapter in this lesson because it's really the basics of whole numbers, add, subtract, multiply, divide, and order of operations. Okay, so now we're to multiplication of whole numbers. In a multiplication problem, the product is the name given to the result of the multiplication. The numbers being multiplied are the factors of the product. Changing the order of the factors does not change the product, and that simply means I can multiply in any order and it does not matter. 2 times 3 equals 6 and 3 times 2 equals 6. So either way, I get the same answer. Now, we call that a product. We don't really use that terminology a ton. I don't know why part of my letters are off my screen here because of my let me see if I can move that over. I was trying to get my letters to show up right at the end there, but we'll just have to go with it like this. Okay, a machinist needs 25 lengths of steel, each 9 inches long. What is the total length of steel that he needs? No allowance is required for cutting. Now, in this case, total is going to be a multiplication, but remember, multiplication comes from repeated addition, so that would maybe make sense in this case. It's fairly simple to tell that, oh yes, I'm going to take the 25 times 9, and that's a total of 225 inches. All right, this is an HVAC problem, multiplication of whole numbers. That's what we're still on. And on this one, you do have to read carefully to make sure that you get in what you need here, right? So home ventilation standards require a controlled ventilation rate of 15 cubic feet per minute per person. If a house is occupied by 4 people, what total ventilation rate is required? Okay, so we need 15 cubic feet for every person every minute. Okay, so in this case, we're going to take 15 times 4 because there are 4 people. So we need 60 cubic feet per minute. Now there's easier ways to write this out. Obviously, I don't expect you to write it all like that. You can say cubic feet. You can abbreviate feet. You can also say, I'm going to write this, 60 feet cubed. That means cubic feet. This means per minute. So it's much quicker to write it that way. But you do want to be careful on how you label something and get it labeled correctly. So we need 60 cubic feet every minute of ventilation in this house. And now we're on to division of whole numbers. In division problems, the number being divided is called the dividend. The number used to divide is called the divisor. The result of division is called the quotient. That's just terminology, and honestly, we mostly just say division, and occasionally you're going to see that word possibly quotient on some of the problems that we might do, but I think for the most part we just use division. Now on this one, it's manufacturing, and it says, what is the average horsepower of 6 engines having the following horsepower ratings? So we've got these ratings. Average means that we are going to have division, but first we add them up. So one way we can write that out is just to write out all the numbers and then put a fraction bar underneath to show that we're dividing, because remember, a fraction bar means division also. So write out your numbers. And then we're dividing by 6. Now, one thing I will do with something like this, if you at least write out your total, which in this case, if you add up these numbers, we end up with 2,238, and we're dividing by 6. So you could maybe just put plus signs up here, and as long as you give me a total, not just an answer, not just the answer, but the total. And my total is 2238. We're dividing that by 6, and it is 373 horsepower. One thing in this lesson, you shouldn't be getting any decimals or fractions because we're on whole numbers. So that is something to remember. If you should get that, you may realize, oh, wait a minute, I think I made a mistake here. All right, agriculture. Barley weighs 48 pounds per bushel. How many bushels are in 816 pounds of barley? All right, so we're going to take, because it's 48 pounds per bushel, that means we're going to take the 48 pounds per bushel, the 816 pounds, divide it by 48, and that gives us 17 bushels. All right, and that is it on that one. You could also write that as 816 over 48 because that means division, right? So either way would be okay. Okay, so order of operations. We have order of operations so that we all get the same answer for the same combination of numbers. And it's important that that happens. Otherwise, it wouldn't make much sense and people would be very confused. So notice that we perform any calculations in parentheses first, and then multiplication and division working from left to right. So division can come before multiplication, and the same thing on addition and subtraction. So notice this part is very important, right? Working from left to right, because I can subtract before I add, I can divide before I multiply, and it's important that you know that. So I left the rules up here as we work through these problems, and I will show you what happens here. So we're going to perform first on the first problem. We have division and we have addition. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that division comes before addition, so we have to divide first. And you guys know that I have all these problems worked out ahead of time, so I'm not pulling out my calculator as I do the video. I already know these answers. So when I divide, I get 17, and then I add that to 386. I know you can just key this into your calculator, and by the way, a scientific calculator will do the order of operations correctly, so you can always key it in to check it. But I want to see some steps because I want you to know this. I want you to know order of operations without your calculator so that you know which one to do first. It's important that you know that. And then our final answer is 403. Now on the next question, we have multiplication, we have division, addition, subtraction. Well, we go left to right with the multiplication and division first. So we can actually multiply, divide, and write those out with our pluses and minuses. So we have 12 times 38 is 456. We're adding that to 46 times 19, which is 874. And then we're subtracting 1560 divided by 24, which is 65. And then left to right, we add the 456 to the 874, subtract 65. I'm okay with just going ahead and finding that answer right there. So that's enough work, right? It's not a ton of work, but it's enough that I can see what you're doing. All right. By the way, this is section 1.5. The section number's kind of cut off. I'm going to have to go back and look at that on the next video and try to get that within my screen here. Alrighty, we're going to do some order of operations again. So on this one, we're going to perform the addition that's in the parentheses first. So 973 minus 808, sorry. I think I was looking at one of the numbers there. And then we subtract to get 165. That's all the work required there. All right. So this is a landscaping question. All right. So on a certain landscaping job, Steve charged the customer $468 for labor and $90 each for 8 flats of plants. write a single mathematical statement giving the total cost of this job, then calculate the cost. So you're actually writing out the order of operations on this one, and that would be 468, right? That's the initial charge, that's labor, plus it's going to be $90 times 8. Now you can always put parentheses in if you feel like that would be a good place to put them. That would it doesn't hurt anything, but it's not necessary in this case because we're going to have the 468 and then we have to multiply those before we can do the addition. So that gives me 720. And when we add that, this is a dollar amount, so you want to be sure and put a dollar sign. It's 1,188 for that one. All right. Okay, so we're going to make it on 2 videos, it looks like. This is the last question for the lesson. It's Automotive Trades. At the beginning of the day on Monday, the parts department has on hand 520 spark plugs. You might want to highlight things as you go, right? Whoops. Mechanics in the service department estimate they will need about 48 plugs per day. Okay. And then a new shipment of 300 will arrive on Thursday. Now, this is on Monday, so we're going to say there's 5 days in the week, and it says write out a mathematical statement that gives the number of spark plugs on hand at the end of the day on Friday, and then calculate the total for that. So we can write this out. We have 520 to begin with. We're going to subtract the number used each day, so that's 48 times 5. And then we get 300 more on Thursday, and that's the way that we find this. Now, you can, if you want to, put parentheses here. It's perfectly fine to do that, but we're going to multiply first anyway, right? So we're going to go ahead and say 520 minus 240 plus 300. Now, I would suggest when you're writing this out, you know how I highlighted everything, and you realize, oh, 48 plugs every day, and they're going to use those, so I had to subtract that, and that's why putting in parentheses here might make you feel better and go, okay, I know I have to subtract that part. We end up with then, at the end of the week on Friday, 580 spark plugs. All right. Now, if I was teaching this in class, I would be pausing a lot. I would talk about it. I would have students writing it out and try it on their own. And that's what you have to do yourself, right? So you're going to make sure that as you're working through this, you pause and try it yourself before I start writing it out. So maybe you pause right when you get to this slide and then try it on your own. Okay. Well, that is the end of lesson 1. There will be homework connected to this on my lab, and then written homework 1 goes with this homework or for chapter 1. Bye, everyone.